Pipe Network presents.
On this episode of Season 4, Let's Talk.
When I read something, it has to not only appeal to me, but it should also make me think. That's the reason why I like to read the writing by the authors that I just said.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Rajiv Show, and I'm your host Rajiv Doreswamy, and this show aims to help reach out to those who are currently struggling in life and to remind you that life is indeed beautiful when you're inspired to make it your own. Today we're going to talk to Baguio's finest copywriter, Bo Moldez, a friend of mine, an amazing conversationalist. Bo, how are you doing today?
Thank you very much, Rajiv. And that was a really amazing introduction. Thank you so much. And I hope that your listeners can also learn from what I've learned as a copywriter and, of course, as a Baguio boy.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. For our folks, for our listeners, give us a little bit of background as to who you are. Paint us a
Mhm.
picture of your life, if you may.
Oh, all right. So, in terms of work, I help biohackers, bulletproof coaches, and a not Banyel method practitioners get more customers and clients by creating uh, content that engages and converts them. I have been working as a copywriter since 2017, and aside from copywriting, I work in content marketing and also in social media. Another thing that I do is I am part of an online group that teaches social media to freelancers, entrepreneurs, and home-based workers called Social Media Academy. And I'm also an aspiring novelist, and I'm going to launch my novel slash book by the end of 2020. So that's what I do as a professional. Uh, and I actually graduated with a degree in agriculture, and I do have a license, but it turns out that this isn't for me. So I focused working in ESL before. I was teaching Japanese, Korean, Chinese students online how to speak English. But then I veered towards digital marketing, content marketing, copywriting, social media, because it leading me to become the novelist and the writer that I want to be. Um, I'm born in Baguio, but I have lived in different places. I have lived in Los Baños, Laguna, Davao City, uh, Cabacan, Cotabato, in the south, in Mindanao. But for the most part, I am now a permanent resident of the city of Pines. So I'm a Baguio boy through and through.
Awesome. Awesome. The question that I normally ask my guest is, who were you in high school? If you and I were classmates, like,
Okay. Well, I was actually one of the class nerds, and that's speaking too much because I actually studied in a science high school,
oh,
Philippine Science High School in Mindanao, the Davao campus, Southern Mindanao campus. You have really smart individuals who are really good in science and math and technology. But I was more of like sort of the English nerd. I wrote for the school paper, and for the most part, I hang out in the library.
mm,
So I realized early on that I wanted to live a life where I would like to write as a living, I mean, like I had an idea back in high school, so I was that guy, the reader, the writer sort of guy in a world of science personalities.
Interesting. The second question that I wanted to ask now is, who's your greatest motivation and why?
Well, I grew up in a evangelical Christian household. I grew up being prayed over by my pastor dad, who was a former college dean and forester. My dad was a former forester and college dean in Benguet State University in La Trinidad, Benguet. And then he decided to become like a full-time pastor. Um, I would always remember that he would say in prayers that we would grow in stature and wisdom, truly pleasing God, and making a difference in the lives of others. So for me, that's sort of a motivation to make a positive difference in the lives of other people. Like when you say you make a difference, you make an impact, a positive impact in their lives. And it kind of aligned with what I wanted to do, to write. I see that when I write novels, that will make a positive impact on the readers. And when you write a novel, it gives you a sense of immortality, that your words will transcend your human existence, that when people read it, they can actually see and change their lives out of that reading. So for me, I guess that's one of the biggest motivations, to create writing that makes a difference and makes a difference and makes an impact in the lives of people. And I want to write it in story, because story makes the truth sound clear. There's a saying by Picasso that I will paraphrase to relate to fiction. Fiction tells the truth through lies, or fiction is the lie that tells the truth. So I want to tell truth that will impact humanity through the writing that I create. So that, for me, is one of the biggest motivations that I have in living.
Wow, that's really powerful.
Thank
Uh,
you, man.
to continue the questions, what made you who you are at this level, at this stage?
Oh yeah. I'm gonna be honest with you. I haven't actually gotten the clarity that I have now. Uh, I mean, I got the clarity that I have now. I think 2018 or 2019, somewhere along those lines. I got into a coaching call with one of the best freelancers here in the Philippines. His name is John Pagulayan. Um, One of the things that he made me realize is I have to look for clarity instead of certainty, because in our life is very uncertain, but you have a clarity of purpose, a clarity of direction, and a clarity of action. You can actually reach to whatever goal that it is that you need. um, and I started freelancing because I wanted it as a way for me to earn money, and also to do my work as a writer. And in my freelancing journey, I have encountered mentors. I have made mistakes. I have pissed off some clients by not working for them really well. And one of the things that helped me in freelancing is a book by Bob Burge. It's called The Go Giver. In this book, A Go Giver, it teaches you about uh, you give value. That is your life as a freelancer. I mean, like right now in this pandemic, there are a lot of people who want to become freelancers, and the top of their mind is to make so they can survive. Now we can understand that, but if we want to succeed as freelancers, we have to look at how we can produce value and how we can get value in return. So for me, that's what made me who I am. And to be honest, I took a degree of agriculture back in university, but it turns out that it isn't for me. For me, I see myself as a writer. I see myself as a novelist. And with that in mind, with that kind of clarity that kind of gelled in 2018 or 2019, I am seeing myself clearly what I want to do.
Interesting. Uh, Fourth question that I want to ask is, if today was yesterday, what would you keep and what would you let go of?
Um, what would I keep? I
Yeah.
guess I'd like to keep my my skills as a writer because it's sort of my bread and butter right now. It's helping me pay the bills. It's giving me the cash flow that I need to survive and thrive. And I of course I want to keep my family. To be honest, I'm not with them. My brothers are in Los Baños, Laguna, and my dad is in Davao City. But I want to keep them. Uh, what I want to lose are the limiting beliefs that plagued me before. That I am not enough. That I can't do things. That I am not worthy. I want to leave that. I mean, right now, um, I have a little bit of that, but I am overcoming that. But I hope that I can leave that all behind in the past. And I guess one more thing that I want to leave in the yesterday is the poundage that I have. I mean, I'm very overweight. You have seen me in person, but if you see me right now, you'd probably say, "Hey, Bo, you're like this big chubby, huggable person," because I'm sort of big. So I'm gonna work on that. By the way, I have a mentor who's teaching me how to let go of all these things, starting with the mind. So limiting beliefs, and the fat and excess poundage that I have. I want to leave that for yesterday. Right now, I want to move forward with helping people, loving the people that are dear to me, and reaching out and making a difference with the people that I meet.
Awesome. And the last question that I normally ask is, what are your thoughts for the future?
Well, for me right now, people are actually really scared right now recording it. We're talking about this in a season where we have COVID-19, right?
Yeah.
And it's pretty scary to go out, to reach out to people, to make an actual meaningful human connection. But the way I see it in the near future, we can go back and connect to each other in a very meaningful way. I mean, even with this kind of distance online, we can make a meaningful human connection. So for me, uh, I want a future where we can actually connect with people, have that meaningful connection. And right now, during this time, during this COVID season, this pandemic, we have we have an opportunity to actually make ourselves better. We have an opportunity to refine ourselves, to try to connect to people online, make a difference, and provide value. I'm not gonna say that right now is pretty easy. It's not. But for me, in the near future, there are possibilities that we can actually take and use, not only to better ourselves or to enrich ourselves, but also to make a difference and better the lives of others. So for me, the future is potential. It's possibility. It's something that we have to grasp. Before we do that, we have to refine and make ourselves better.
Awesome. Before we go on to our art talk segment, I would like to take a short break, and we will be back. Stick around, folks, after this break.
Looking for a podcast on TV and movie discussions? Try Review. Catch new episodes every Saturday, 6 p.m. on your favorite podcast streaming platform. I'm your boy Wesley. Don't forget to smile today, and see you in the next review.
Folks, welcome back. And I'm here with my friend, a legendary copywriter and writer, as mentioned in the earlier interview, in earlier conversation. Bo, let's talk about some
Hey.
arts, shall we? My
Oh, of
first
course, of
question
course.
is who are your top three writers? Can be any
Oh,
writer from the earlier times to this time.
well, basically there are three. Uh, actually, I would actually say four, probably more. Uh, First, there's Jordan Peterson. He's not technically a writer per se. He's a
Psychologist.
psychologist or a
Yeah.
psychiatrist, but I like the way that he writes about, personal responsibility, individual responsibility, and all that.
Hmm.
I also like Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss wrote the 4 Hour series, 4 Hour Work Week, 4 Hour Chef, 4 Hour Body, and a Tribe of Mentors and Tools of Titans. Um, in my market, the people that I help, he is also considered sort of a biohacker. He had a series where he learned skills within a week, and he did it really well.
Hmm.
So he's another writer that I look up to. Another one is Ryan Holiday.
Hmm.
Ryan Holiday wrote um, Up the Obstacle is the Way, Ego is the Enemy, Stillness is the Key. In terms of stoicism, I like the way that he writes. It's very easy, and it's uh, good for the way that you think. And lastly, Robert Greene. Robert Greene wrote The 48 Laws of Power, The Art of Seduction,
Hmm.
33 Strategies of War, Laws of Human Nature, Mastery. If you are working, his books are some of the books that you must read. It really is amazing. Yeah.
Wow.
So these are the writers that I look up to. In the present, of course, I have other writers that I look up to when it comes to literature. For example, there's Stephen Pressfield. He wrote Gates of Gates of Fire. Uh, he wrote The War of Art. If you really want to learn how to think like an artist, you have to do that. Yeah,
These are some interesting stuff. We'll put some of the links of these books on the description. These are some
of
interesting
course, of
reads.
course, of
Uh, s-
course, of course.
Speaking of reads, I'm sure that you've gone through a lot of books. If you were to, it's not really a negative way of thinking of it. If you were to take a particular writer, a particular book, and do it in your own style, who would it be? And interestingly, what difference would you give to the person's style and approach to writing?
Hmm. Um. You see, when it comes to the writing, I'm looking at something that would provoke thought, would make you think, and it's an easy read.
Hmm.
For most people, they would try to make things more intellectual, but when I read something, it has to not only appeal to me, but it should also make me think. That's the reason why I like to read the writing by the authors that I just said.
Hmm.
Um, they leave a very indelible mark, or a mark within me that I um, get into.
Hmm.
And when I read these authors, it makes me realize that, hey, uh, I'm not just a person living for myself, but
Hmm.
I'm also a person living for others. I'm also a person that has a purpose. So when it comes to the books that I read, those are the things that I look at. Of course, the books that I've read, like say for example, Tim Ferriss, uh, Robert Greene, they have been, suggested reading for me. So I got to read them as well. And since I'm working as a freelance writer, I also look at these writers as a way to help me with my freelancing career. A lot of people think that when you go to freelancing, you just work, but there
Mm,
is a lot of reading involved. So if you are a freelancer, you have to read a lot of books to help you with your mindset, not just to improve your skill. So these are the reasons why I got into reading these books.
interesting. Uh, for me personally, earlier on, before I started collecting a lot of books, fiction and all that stuff, I was introduced to Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was my very first book, and yeah, I was more of a visual guy. I think my learning is more on the visual side. Granted that I did arts and music, and I look at things in a more visual prospect. Someone introduced this book to me, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I finished it in weeks. And then it's
Oh,
funny. It's funny once you get a whiff of a nice, good book. You have this momentum, and you just want to just keep reading. And then after I finished that, I'm obsessed with a lot of Mario Puzo, and I've been collecting, been hunting. There's something to do with the mafia storytelling and Mario Puzo's brilliant
oh
storytelling.
yeah.
And yeah, speaking of mafia stuff, I've always I've seen like the Godfather trilogy like 3 or 4 times, 5 times, I think even more now, because it's every time I watch it, it's somewhat it's interesting. But then when I read the book, I finished the book. I think I think last year. It's a different. It's such a different feeling. It's like you're entering a realm, and
Mm.
that's the beauty of writing. I really appreciate the art form. I did attempt the earlier times, but yeah, it takes a lot of practice, I guess, for people, for young people, especially those who are still starting out and stuff like that. It's any best advice for speaking of starting out, like I hope some people who are tuning in, do you have any
Mm.
best advice about on writing and stuff, like what is your best quotation or advice on that?
Well, not really quotation, but more of like practice.
Mm,
When you are beginning as a writer, and you do not have any writing experience a lot, quantity is quality. What do I mean by that? It's like you have to write as much as you can, like every day. Just write. Basically, it's like an extension of the saying, just write.
mm,
Because to become a good writer, you just have to write. And if you're
mm,
starting out, the more you write, the better, because the more that you write, the more you weed out the bad things that
mm,
you can write until the good things will come out. So if you're beginning as a writer, for our listeners, if you're beginning as a writer,
mm,
get yourself a journal, start a blog, write, post something on social media, write very long posts in social media. People will like that. There will be people who will read. Write as much as you can. It doesn't matter if it's bad grammar. It doesn't matter if it's um, unclear, because the longer you write, the more you see uh, yourself becoming better. So at the start of your writing journey,
mm.
quantity is equal to quality.
Wow.
Write as much as you can. I saw myself in that way. I started writing a journal every day. I have to finish like a page from my journal. I would write something like an article. I
Mm,
would post something in Facebook or LinkedIn, like what I'm doing right now.
mm,
The important thing is you write every single day. The more that you write every single day, the better your chances of writing are, because um, you get used to it. But I'm gonna be honest with you, one of
mm,
the hardest things that you can do as a writer is to begin writing. I mean, like,
mm.
um, if I am given a writing assignment from a client,
Huh.
there are times that it would be really, really hard for me to write, to begin whatever the assignment is. But when I begin typing on the keyboard or writing on a piece of paper,
Huh.
the thoughts just flow. Um, it just flows. So you do have to prepare your writing. You do have to outline whatever it is that you're writing. And then as you outline it and as you go write it, the
Hmm.
words just flow. You do have to take preparation if you're going to write something formally. But if you are beginning, you need to get used to writing, because I'm going to be honest with you,
Hmm.
writing is very uncomfortable. But when you are there, you actually established a flow. I learned this from this psychiatrist or psychologist. His name is Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Uh, he's a Hungarian person, and he wrote a book called Flow.
Hmm.
Um, and then he said that it's very uncomfortable to begin something, but when you are in the middle of it,
Hmm.
you actually have a certain sense of flow. It's like you're at one with whatever it is that you're doing. You are not self-conscious because your focus is what you're doing. So that is my suggestion for people who would like to become good writers. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert writer, but I believe that I'm competent enough to write something, not just for my clients, but also for myself. So yeah,
Some
quantity is quality.
that's interesting. That this last statement you said with flow. When you said that,
Hmm.
the first trigger that hit me in my head was this lost interview with Bruce Lee where he talks about the philosophy of the water. It's
Oh yeah, yeah,
somewhat yeah,
somewhat similar.
yeah, irrelevant to that, because water, I don't want to repeat what he said, but it goes with the same saying
Be
that
like water.
flow, yeah, it flows and crash. And it's an interesting if coming to think of it, it's an interesting thing. It's funny. It's always I agree with you when it says starting out is always the toughest. It's funny because when you're sitting down there with a piece of paper or with a tablet or laptop or something, the first question that even for me sometimes is that my earlier years when my earlier times when I used to you do the blog, as a lot of people know that I do a blog post every Mondays. I used to get a lot of I used to get I used to cram my work uh, earlier. I used to get a burnout because when I used to cram my work, I used to work at Sundays, and it's so intense that
Oh yeah.
even though the deadline is like around, I schedule post it. Even though I schedule post it, it's still stressful nonetheless, which
Oh
is
yeah.
ironic.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, the first question is, what do I want to write about? What do I want to speak about? And it's always that. Uh, is it an thing inevitable that every time you write, you'll always have this what was that, mental block, or what's the word?
Oh, you mean a writer's
Writer's
block?
block.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, that's the word I was going with. Yeah, is it natural, or do you have to is there a remedy, drink lime juice, or anything anything like
Well,
that?
for me, there's like uh, two to three reasons why there is writer's block. Number one, you're not really clear on what you want to write. Number two, you're lazy. You just I just don't want to write, so you make an excuse like I don't want to write because I
Hmm,
have writer's block, but deep
hmm,
inside you're actually lazy. Number three, you're actually exhausted. So um I guess the simple answer is just to write. That's the number one remedy for writer's block. But with the reasons that I've given, there are actually ways to counter that. Number one reason, one problem why you have writer's block is because of clarity, right? If
hmm,
you don't have any clarity on what you're going to write. So
hmm,
uh, if you have a clarity problem, again, you have to write down why you're supposed to write,
Mm,
what you're supposed to write. You can write it in an outline, you can
mm,
write it in like a prose something,
mm,
or you can like list down things on why you're going to write
mm,
this. And once you have those reasons, and once you have everything there, you can actually use that as a starting point for your writing. And with that kind of process, the writer's block is eliminated. The next reason is because you're just lazy. If you are lazy, I mean, like, everybody says, oh, I'm a diligent person. I do this, I'm responsible and all that. But everyone can experience this point where where they feel that they're lazy. They feel like they don't want to do this. Well,
mm,
yeah, sometimes you do have to chill. But if you have like a deadline or something and you can't write,
mm.
you have that actually removes the laziness. Like, say for example, I've actually experienced this because, living alone,
Yeah.
there is no one checking up on me except
Yeah.
on my online contacts, like my bosses, my clients, and all of that. Sometimes they would send me a deadline. Okay, you need to write this by this day, right? So uh, I would have to write. So if you're lazy, you have to remind yourself why you're supposed to do that.
Mm,
Another is you need to have a level of accountability. Like, somebody will check you up, like a partner or a boss or someone who would say that, hey, you need to do this. Hey, you need to do that. And another thing is you have to have what I guess I'd call negative motivation.
mm,
uh, yeah, let me explain.
mm,
So, in his book, I guess it's the 4 Hour Work Week or the 4 Hour Chef.
mm,
Tim Ferriss says that for us to be motivated, there's like a positive motivation and a negative motivation. So when you say positive motivation, it's like, what am I going to gain if I
mm,
accomplish this? So, for example, okay, I'm gonna have to write an article, and my deadline is this Sunday.
mm,
And if I pass it on or before Sunday, I'll be getting $500 for that article. So that's a positive motivation, because if I accomplish it, I get something like money
mm.
or a reward. But a negative motivation is actually more motivating to people, because people hate to lose something. We have loss aversion. So, for example, okay, if you do not accomplish this task, like writing this article
Mm.
on or before Sunday, you will lose your job.
Oh,
So it will scare you into writing,
yeah, that's
uh,
intense.
finishing. That is intense. That is intense, because nobody wants the feeling of loss. I mean, if you lost your job, you don't have anything to pay the bills, buy you food, get
Yeah.
something for enjoyment. So that is one way to counter laziness, right? But that is not sustainable, because it adds up more stress, and it
Yeah.
makes you realize that, hey, I don't want to do this. I don't want to get this feeling anymore. So uh, yeah, you need accountability. You need this kind. But I guess the best way to counter, like, the laziness factor of writer's block is understand why you're doing it. Oh, I'm doing this not only for myself.
Mm,
I'm doing this for my family and something like that. Um, when you have I mean, like, I'm a single guy, right?
mm,
So this kind of reason why it's not really that big on me. But if I have a family, like
mm,
if I have a wife and kids, and then I have to write,
mm.
that laziness is countered, because I have to provide for my family. But since I'm a single guy, I can be happy go lucky anytime I want.
Yeah.
So that's it. Accountability, your reason why, negative motivation. So yeah. Of course, the last element is you're tired, you're exhausted.
Yeah.
Uh, the easy remedy with that is rest. Take like a day or two off from writing. Of course, man, you're human. You need to recharge, and you have to understand that you need what we call a mental bandwidth, right? So
Just like
Your
Wi-Fi.
mental bandwidth. Yeah, something like that. It's more of what you can do at a specific period of time. Like, say for example, for me, um, I can only be productive within a 4 to 6 hour window.
Hmm.
Yeah, after that, my mind is fried. Right. So,
Really?
yeah, that's for me. So I have to schedule accordingly. So if there are tasks that don't really need much of thinking, like say for example, I'll do some chores, wash some dishes, cook some food, clean the
Yeah.
house. You don't need your mental a lot of mental faculty for that.
Yeah.
I can do it. Yeah, but writing is so mentally draining. From you researching the topic, creating an outline, writing the draft, and editing it, it is very draining. So you do need to rest. You do need to take care of your mental bandwidth. That's why when I have a writing task, for example, given to me by my clients or for my work,
Mm.
I would have to schedule that as the only thing that I will be doing for the day. So, for example, one of my clients would say, "Okay, I need an article that is 1,500 words in length." Right? So
Mm.
for me, for the whole day, that's the only thing that I'm gonna have to do that takes a long time because it is draining. Writing can be very draining. So yeah, you have to rest, and you also have to pace yourself and schedule the things that you have to do.
Wow. I was expecting more than just the lime juice kind of thing. Would have been
Well, yeah.
only if only
Well,
that would have.
oh, here's another tip for writers,
Yeah.
because one of the things that one of the advice that I got from my mentors is this:
Hmm.
you have to write drunk but edit sober. So if you're into tequila or into alcoholic drinks, it's nice to have lime juice there as a chaser or something, so
Yeah.
that you can write as well, write as much as you can, because when you're writing something, um, when you're creating your draft,
Yeah.
you just have to write continuously, and you don't want your critical factor in your mind to edit it while you're writing. You're
Oh
gonna
yeah.
have to edit it after you're writing.
It
Yeah,
delays
so you
more.
just need
Yeah.
to, yeah, you just need to dump out all those thoughts on paper, or on the document. Um, if you're going to ask me what my writing process is when it comes to writing my articles, what I
Mm.
do is, number one, we set a goal. Like,
Mm.
okay, who is this for? Who am I writing for? And then after setting that goal, I would have to create a topic, a list of topics, and then a list of titles. And then from that title, I would have to go research uh, the things that are needed there, and then create an outline while I
Mm.
research. So when I write an outline, it is very detailed,
Mm.
from like, okay, this is what I'm going to write for the introduction, and these are the references. I would have to include links because I also write um, online,
Mm.
right? So I need to have those links there so that when I write, I can just put in the links there
Mm.
so that I can show that what I'm writing is not plagiarized, right? So after I have created the outline and included the links, I would then create the draft. The draft I would usually write within an hour or two.
Mm.
And then after writing the draft, I would have to edit it. If I do
Mm.
self-editing, I use Grammarly
Oh.
because, yeah, it actually is useful, not just for grammar, but um, it also checks plagiarism. So we don't want to have plagiarized work, because if the work is plagiarized, the client would have legal troubles.
Yeah.
right? So
They'll take
I
50
check.
cents. They'll take 50
Oh
cents off of
yeah.
the thing, off of
Oh
the whole
yeah,
hard
yeah.
work. And yeah, you have to go from the
I
start
know, I
again.
know. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Rajiv.
Yeah.
The first writing gig that I had, and I learned this the hard way.
Ooh.
I wrote about 5 or 10 articles because I didn't have any time.
Huh.
I just copy pasted, and then
Ooh. That's
yeah,
suicide.
yeah,
That's writing
yeah.
suicide.
I know. That is writing suicide. But that was me starting back then in 2017. So um, I did not run away from the client. What I did was I gave her a refund.
Ah.
So she paid me, if I'm not mistaken, about 5,000 Australian dollars
Ooh.
for that gig. But I had to return it back because if I did not return it back, there will be a big chance that she will,
Get sued or something.
yeah, she
Mm.
she might get, yeah. Aside from that, and of course, it's also part of my reputation as well. So I gave
Ooh.
it back, and then I learned from that. Okay, I don't want to be plagiarizing anymore. So yeah, uh, I use Grammarly to check the grammar and the links, the writing, so it is not plagiarized.
Mm.
And after checking it with Grammarly, I use another online tool called Hemingway app. Hemingway app, what it does is it checks the readability of your writing.
Mm.
Okay, because when you go online to read, you do not read at your like graduated level. Like say
Mm.
for example, you're a university graduate, right?
Mm.
So as a university graduate, for example, you are like a PhD in sociology.
Mm.
When you go to work, you read stuff at that level, a
Mm.
university level, uh, reading level. But when you go online, you don't read that way. You try to read something that is simpler, because when people read online, they read at a fifth grade reading level.
Mm.
So, what I do after editing it in Grammarly, I put it in HemingwayApp.com.
Mm.
It's free. So when you put stuff on HemingwayApp.com, it will tell you, okay, this is at a 12th grade reading level. So to reduce that, I make it into shorter sentences. Um, I don't use big words.
Mm.
Like instead of saying like liberate, it's better to say to free, right? Because it's
Mm.
easier. Because people read at a lower reading level. Now let me tell you something. One reason why Donald Trump is president of the U.S.,
Mm.
because during his time he was the only one who talked at that level. Fifth, he talked at a fifth grade reading level so that people could understand him more.
Ah,
And
okay. So
you
that
want
makes sense. Makes sense now.
so you want to write in a way that is really simple so that your audience can understand what you're trying to say. So as much as possible, I set the reading level to a fifth grade or even lesser. So if I get to a 0 grade reading level, then that's very good writing. I guess I remember what one of my mentors would say. His name is
Mm.
Alan Ngo. He is one of the best email marketers and email copywriters in the Philippines. He would say that, why use a $10 word when you can use a $1 word? So you use something simpler so that people can understand you more. You want to connect to your readers.
Mm.
You're not there to intimidate, or you're not there to, show off.
Mm.
You want to get their understanding. So, as much as possible, you write in a very, very simple language. So, after going through that process of brainstorming, topics, titles, drafting, and editing,
Mm.
I would then pass my document to my client. So, usually when I write, it would take about 4 to 5 hours to do so, maybe even less. I think I've written an article that's like 2 to 3 hours. For 2 to 3 hours, because a lot of the research takes time. Uh, and then you need to be clear on what you're writing, because if you are clear, if for me, if my outline is clear,
Hmm.
it is actually easier for me to write. So again, if you don't want to have writer's block, you need to have the clarity for your writing. You need to be clear on what you're writing. Yeah, clarity.
That's you just took me to school. It's funny. You took me to school just to take me out to school. Is that's interesting. Um,
Well, I hope our listeners would also get to that, because yeah, while writing does sound glamorous on some
hmm.
things, like, hey, I'm a writer, hey, I've published a book. People don't see the effort that a writer does, from thinking of a topic, creating an outline,
Uh,
researching. Researching is really, really, really bloody, and writing the draft and all that. It's really not easy. It's not glamorous doing it.
it's funny. It's funny coming to think. Sorry, I interrupted you on that part.
Yeah,
It's
no worries.
funny. The way I think of it is the way they look. The way people, young people who are young hopefuls. I don't mean to demean their hopes for being a writer. I mean, it's a
Oh
good.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It is. It's good to find your own writing spirit and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
it's just like, I guess it's somewhat connected to the social media, Instagram, Facebook
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Where they
It's
see,
instant.
yeah, they see a famous writer like, let's take for example J.K. Rowling's, and
Uh-huh.
just because J.K. Rowling's can do a Harry Potter, everybody can do a Harry Potter. Everybody can do
No.
a Godfather. Everybody can do this, and everybody can do that.
No.
And once they sit down, they realize their poor life choices, and then you've deteriorated a writer from his own dreams, and instead of changing the world, probably out there be doing something else. you know that's that's the sad reality, of
Well,
but being writer is a hard work. It's much,
it
it's the
is
same. It
so
is the
much.
same as much as being all the artists and stuff like that. So yeah.
Well, Rajiv, if only people can see what goes on in the mind of a writer,
Hmm,
if only they see the struggles that a writer has,
hmm,
if only they see that sometimes, a lot of writers, people romanticize the fact that a lot of writers have mental issues, mental illnesses,
hmm,
right? Because writing takes a lot out on your mind,
hmm.
and people do not see that. People see that, hey, this person published a book.
Yeah.
Hey, this person is famous. And then if they don't like what the writer has written, they will bash them. They say,
Yeah.
oh, your writing is crap. Your writing is not good. They don't realize how much time, effort, energy, emotion
Yeah.
that the writer puts in the writing.
Yeah, the
So
heart and soul.
you're right. It's the heart and soul. I mean, like painters, when they paint on their canvas, not just the paints or the pigments or any other uh, thing that they put on the canvas. They actually paint their souls. It's the same
Yeah.
thing with writers. So uh, when when some writer writes a book and then
Mm.
somebody bashes it, and then when you look at the basher or the troll, like, dude, it's easy for people to criticize something that they don't like, but it's it doesn't feel good because they can criticize all they want, but if they haven't done anything, they don't have the
Mm.
credibility. Yeah,
Yeah.
so hey, that's just me.
Well, uh, wow, that's been an educational conversation. I mean, I
Thank you,
felt
man.
like I've sat down with the copywriting legend himself. Um,
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you.
if you have like a few word of thoughts for future copywriters who are tuning in, uh, what would you say to them?
I have a couple. So number one, get used to discomfort, because writing is very uncomfortable. Yeah, I love writing. Writing is my bread and butter. Uh, I cannot pay the bills if I haven't written really well.
Mm.
If I don't get articles and social media copy out there, I don't
Mm.
get paid. And yeah, I need to get used to the discomfort of writing because it will be very, very uncomfortable when you're writing. People do not see that in writing. You see, oh, he's a writer. He's really smart. His job is easy. It's not. It never is easy. It's very uncomfortable. But when we are on the zone, when we are
Yeah.
in that flow,
Yeah.
right? You know, like when Bruce Lee said, "Be like water."
Yeah.
Right? It can crash or it can flow and so on and so forth. When we are in that level of flow, it's one of the most intense and pleasurable things that we can feel. So that's number one. Be comfortable with discomfort. Get used to discomfort because there will be a lot of discomfort when you do writing, or in this case, copywriting. Number
Mm.
two, uh, learn about persuasion, because copywriting, aside from being called persuasion, and I'm sorry, aside from me calling it hypnosis in print, copywriting is persuasion in print,
Mm.
right? Or salesmanship in print. So like, I guess you have experienced somebody selling to you one-on-one, like,
Mm.
hey sir, this is a new product. This is blah 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 blah. When you use this, you will get blah blah blah. It's like
Mm.
a one-on-one thing because they're talking to you. Copywriters do that, but it's like them talking to 1,000 people or more because it's written and it can be replicated uh, a long time or in a different way, a lot
Mm.
of ways, right? So you have to understand persuasion.
Mm.
A very good way to learn about persuasion. There's this persuasion expert. His name is Blair Warren. He has this book, or he has this training program called one sentence persuasion course.
Mm.
And if you are listening, if people are listening, this will be a good place for you to start about persuasion. You know, let me quote to you what he said about persuading people. You know, people will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies. So, such a powerful quote. If you know uh, their dreams, if you tell them that it's okay that they failed because that's the same failure that you failed with,
Mm.
if you tell them that, okay, these are your fears, I understand your fears, I have those fears too, and if you confirm about their suspicions, okay, this is your suspicion about this and I believe that is true, and
Mm.
then you throw rocks at their enemies, like, oh, our enemy here is hunger, is poverty, we're
Mm.
going to fight that. If you can convince people of all those things, it will be easier for you to persuade. Now there are a lot of um, modes of persuasion, paradigms of persuasion, but one good place to start is Blair Warren's one sentence persuasion. You can study about um, Robert Cialdini's influence.
Mm.
Uh, wait, Robert Cialdini is one of the best persons to talk about influence, and he has 6 principles of influence that you have to learn, right? If you are going to convince people, there are 6 principles that you need to understand. The first is reciprocity. When you say reciprocity, you give first, and when you give,
Mm.
more likely people will give something back to you. Next is commitment and consistency. You need to be committed in doing things. You need to be consistent in doing things.
Mm.
Because if people see that you are committed and consistent in doing things, it's easier for them to see you as an authority. All
Mm.
right. Next, you need to have social proof. When you say social proof, that would mean like, okay, here's a person who said that this is good. That's where testimonials come in. So
Mm.
that's why when you look at ads, you see people saying, oh, this product is really good for me. Or when you watch like an ad on the television about a movie, there are people who say, "Oh, I love this movie. Oh, this movie is amazing." That's social proof. Next, you need to establish authority. You need to show that you're an expert or an authority on this.
Mm.
And you also need to make them like you. And lastly, you need to use scarcity. So when you say scarcity, like this is a limited time offer, or
Ooh,
only
that's
only six items. Yeah.
that
Because
sounds like
people buy
reverse
something.
psychology. It sounds like
Yeah,
reverse
yeah, in a way.
psychology. Yeah.
Yeah, in a way, because when something is scarce,
Yeah.
people tend to want to buy it, right?
Mm.
So
That's
so
true.
for example, there are only 10 slots available for this online course. It's like, oh,
Mm.
I want to be part of that 10 because
Mm.
there's a level of exclusivity to it.
Yeah.
Another thing, aside from Robert Cialdini's principles of influence, which again are number one, reciprocity; number two, commitment and consistency; number
Mm.
three, social proof; number four, authority; number five, liking; and number six, scarcity.
Mm.
There's also something that we copywriters call the KLT.
Mm.
KLT means uh, first, people have to know who you are. Then, when they know who you are, they can then make them like you. And then, when they like you, you can then make them trust you. People go through that. They don't trust you first. They
Mm.
have to know and like you first. So, um, if you're going to start out learning as a copywriter, learn some of these things. There are a lot of things that you have to learn when it comes to persuasion, but the more you understand how to persuade, the more you get to know persuasion, the easier it is for you to write, to work as a writer and to
Mm.
work as a copywriter. So learn One Sentence Persuasion by Blair Warren. Learn the 6 Principles of Influence by Robert Cialdini and KLT, Know, Like, Trust. I can share to you, we can have a whole episode of like 2-3 hours talking about principles of persuasion, but I'm going to stop at that because
Yeah.
um, as a copywriter, I still am learning principles of persuasion. I mean, I've been starting I've started my copywriting journey in 2017, and I've read these books.
Mm.
Influence by Cialdini, 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, One Sentence Persuasion by Blair Warren. A lot of books about psychology and persuasion because people need to be persuaded. You can't
Mm.
just lay out your product or your service without
Yeah.
persuading them. So that is a very important skill set of a copywriter, understanding how to persuade. Um, and number three, if you're going to learn how to become a copywriter, number one is, what was number one again? Get used to the discomfort of writing.
Yeah.
Number two, get used to persuasion. Understand persuasion in all its various forms and how to use it effectively. And number three, you need to understand how humans think. You have to know human nature.
Mm.
Um, One book that I've read that somehow helped me with understanding human nature is Robert Greene's The Laws of Human Nature. I think it was
Mm.
published 2018. People have to read that to understand how human beings think. I mean, for me, um, it's actually being used right now, you know, and I'm still learning a lot of it. So you need to know how people think. You need to know what we call cognitive biases.
Mm.
So when you say cognitive biases, it's like, okay, this is how people think, and this is how you're going to use it. So um, I'm going to look for an example of a cognitive bias uh, that you can actually use. So,
Mm.
for example, a very good example of cognitive bias is what we call a bandwagon effect, right? So, for example, um, one person got a taste of a chocolate chip cookie.
Hmm.
right? Post it on Instagram, and then everybody sees that. Oh my God, that looks like such a delicious cookie. And then
Hmm.
everybody buys that cookie, right? Because that one person influenced them. That's a bandwagon effect. Or here's another example, again, closest to food. You and I have seen pictures of, you know, um, ube cheese pandesal. Have you seen
Ah.
that picture of the ube cheese pandesal, right?
Ah.
Yeah, it looks good. It looks delicious because like it's in a blue color. It tastes like ube, and then it has melted cheese inside. So like, oh my God,
Hmm.
I want to have that too because he's having that.
Hmm.
So everybody follows. It's a bandwagon effect. So that is a cognitive bias that you have to learn, right? So there are a lot of cognitive biases, and us copywriters, we use that cognitive biases to help us write something that would persuade people and convince people about what we want. So that's part of human nature. So if you understand human nature, it will be easier for you to persuade. It will be easier for you to get people to do what you want. So, going back again to the three things to our listeners, if you want to start learning how to be a copywriter, number one, be comfortable with the discomfort of writing.
Hmm.
Number two, understand how persuasion works. Number three, understand human nature. So, if you know these three things, it will be easier for you to become a copywriter. I mean, like when I started, I didn't know that I needed to know these three things. But if I was back there starting out beginning as a copywriter, it's like, oh, I should have known these when I started. I should have known these are these things to start with to make me a better copywriter. So that would be my advice.
Awesome. Wow. It has been a workshop. I feel like it has been a workshop. It's been an intense, gruesome workshop. And if people want to connect with you, how do they connect with you, by the way?
Well, yeah. Right now I'm sort of building up my website. It's called bomoldez.com. Uh, right now I'm still building this up, and I hope that by the time your listeners are actually listening to this, the website will be up. Um, right now we're talking in August of 2020, um, and in the long run, probably within this month, August 2020, I will be launching my website. So they can go to my website, bomoldez.com, BOMOLDZ.com. They can also connect with me through LinkedIn and Facebook. My Facebook is kind of full. They can send me a message through Facebook, and they can also connect with me through LinkedIn because right now I am focusing on working on LinkedIn. So these are the places where I can be connected with. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you again, Bo Moldez, for the amazing workshop and conversation. I'm
Thank you,
looking
Sir Rajiv.
forward to the stuff that you've delved in deep. You know, you've cut in a little bit of meat there that needs to be opened up and be roasted. You know, like you
Of course, of
philosophize
course.
writing. I hope somehow we're gonna create a season where you get to dissect and deconstruct and roast the meat as I
Yeah.
mentioned.
Of course, of
so
course.
so
I'm
yeah.
actually right here if you need to talk to me, Rajiv.
Hmm.
And I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but this 2020, I am going to launch my novel. So
Ooh,
maybe if they can work through that. So yeah,
awesome. uh Again, thank you so much for being a guest on my show. uh
it is a pleasure and an honor, Rajiv. Thank you so much.
you are an absolute legend, and I'm a proud fan.
Oh, thank
And
you. Thank you,
I'm
man.
I'm looking forward to see what madness you can come up with in the next coming episodes on my show. Thank you again,
Awesome.
Bo Moldez. Thank you so much. And for those who are tuned in and who have who have enjoyed this conversation, feel free to share this with your friends. You know, you get to learn a lot here. There's a lot of materials that you can learn here. With that in mind, folks, cheers. I will see you in the next episode.